Okay, number 9 says, for each table, write an equation in slope-intercept form, then solve the system by using your calculator. If the system has one solution, name it. Okay, so we can write the equation either by hand or we can put it in our calculator. Let's go ahead and just practice the calculator. So if we start at the home screen, if I want to add a table list or a table, I'm going to go to a new document, which is number 1. And then I'm going to do number 4, where we add a list or a table. And then I want to arrow up. And in the A column, I'm putting an X. In the B column, I'm putting a Y. So in the first column, we have 0, 2, and 4 for the X's. In the Y column, we have 3, 1, and -1. So once we have that in and my cursor is below my last entry, I'm going to go to Menu. And then remember we went to Statistics and then Stat Calculations, which was 1. And then Linear Regression. Remember we wanted the one that had mx plus b, so that'd be number 3. Then in the X list we put X, in the Y list we put Y, and then we hit Enter. And so from there we could see our, this is our slope, here's the M, and this is our y-intercept. So we will have y equals a -1x plus 3. So let's flip back to the worksheet. Okay, so let me write that down. Oh, so we have it right here. And we'll write it right here in just a second. Let's go ahead and do the other ones. Let me flip back over. So remember we can just type over what we had since we just still have 3 points. So in the second data table we have a -2 and then a 0 and then a +2 for the X's. In the Y column we had -5 and a -2 and a +1. So again, then we have my slope, my M is 1.5 and my y-intercept is -2. So if I write that here, y equals 1.5x and then -2. So again, let's flip back over. Okay, so let's put those in the appropriate spot. So we have y equals a -x plus 3 and y equals 1.5x minus 2. So let me get that off of there. All right, so now that we have those equations, we need to find the solution. And it did say using our calculator. Yeah, solve the system by using your calculator. So let's go back to my calculator. And from here, remember we went to Scratchpad. So that would be that's going to be home screen first, and then we'll go to A. And then we want to go to Menu 3, 2. And our variables are the same. They're X and Y, so we're good. So we can just hit Enter. And then I'm going to type in y equals a -1x plus 3 for my first equation. My second equation was y equals 1.5x minus 2, and hit Enter. And so my solution is going to be 2, 1. So let's flip back. So my solution is going to be 2, 1. And so let me just point something out to you guys. You know, we know the solution is where the two lines are intersecting, right? And we've talked about many times how that means that's where they're equal to each other. Well, did you notice that in our first table and in our second table, we actually had a pair of coordinates that were the very same? Do you see right here, this is 2, 1. And over here we also had 2, 1. And of course, what was our solution? 2, 1. So if it's given to us in the table, we can see it already. There's really no sense in us having to do all the work that we just did. We could have just picked it out from our point that was given to us in the table. Okay, number 10 says, which situation is best represented by the system below? So let's see if we can pick out some keywords that will help us. In A, it said, Misty is conducting an experiment and has a beaker with 75 milliliters of solution in it, and 10 milliliters evaporates each day. Well, we have one here that starts with 75, but the word evaporates, does that mean we're going to add or subtract? Yes, we're going to subtract. This one is adding, so A is not going to be it. On B, it says Mike pays an initial charge of $10 to his CD club and then pays $55 each month. So if we're paying this much each month, that means we should have 55 times X or times M. I don't have that in either situation, do I? So B is not going to be it. Let's keep going. John has $55 in his checking account and he withdraws $10 each week. So John, right here, we start with $55 and he withdraws, which means we are taking out, withdraws. Anyway, $10 each week, so we're subtracting $10. That one looks like that works. And it says his brother has $75 in his savings account, which is right here. And then he deposits. The deposit means that we are adding $10 each week, and that is exactly what we did. So it looks like C is going to be the correct answer. Okay, number 11 says the perimeter of a rectangular volleyball court is 180 feet. The court's width, W, is half its length, L. Which system of linear equations could be used to determine the dimensions in feet of the volleyball court? Okay, so we've talked about perimeter many times, that we're just adding all the sides together. So for a rectangle, we have 2 widths and we have 2 lengths. So we're going to add those together, and that should equal the 180 feet. So right away I'm looking for that equation. I don't have it in A. I don't have that equation in C. I have it right here in B, and I have it right here in D. The next part says that the court's width, W, is half its length. So we came to the word width first, so that's where we're going to begin. So we have W equals half of the length. Well, that would be 1/2 times the length, which is L. So over here we have W equals 1/2 L. That looks good. Over here the L and the W are backwards, so definitely not D. So B would be the correct answer. Okay, number 12 says the graph and equation below represent 2 different linear equations. And then it says, what is the solution to the system of equations? So we can do a couple of things, guys. We can plot this over here on the graph and see where they intersect, or we can create the equation for this and put it in the calculator, which I think I'm going to do. I think that would be a little easier. So if we can write it in slope-intercept form, all we need to do is pick out our slope and pick out our y-intercept. So that should be fairly easy. Let's start with the y-intercept. It is crossing my y-axis right here, which is halfway between -2 and -4, so -3. And then our slope, if I start here at -3 and I go up here to my next point, I went up 1 because I went from -3 to -2. And then I went over 1 unit, but look what I'm counting by. I'm counting by 2's, right? So I went up 1 and actually over 2. So up 1 and over 2. So now I have this equation, and I have this equation, and I'm going to put both these 2 equations in my calculator and see how I do. Okay, so we're at Scratchpad. Let's go. We went to Menu, and then 3 and 2. Sorry, my fingers did not work properly. Let me clear that. Let's start again. Menu, 3, 2. Okay. And X's and Y's are being used, so I can hit Enter. So in my first equation, I am typing in 6x plus 2y equals -3. In the bottom equation, I am typing in y equals, we did 1/2, so Control Divide. So we have 1/2 x minus 3. And then we hit Enter. So there's our answer, 3/7, and then comma -39/14. So let's get, sorry, let's go back here. And I'll write that out. So our answer was 3/7 for the x value, and then -39/14. Okay. Number 13 says a parking meter contains dimes and quarters worth $15.25. There are 103 coins in all. Write a system of equations to represent the situation and use it to determine how many of each type of coin there are, or are there. Okay, so we are talking two kinds of coins. We have dimes and we have quarters. So I'm going to let D represent the number of dimes and Q represent the number of quarters. So if I have the number of dimes plus the number of quarters, that should equal the total number, which is 103. And then my second equation should be about their worth, because we know how much we have, $15.25 worth. So a dime is worth 10 cents, so we write 0.10 times the number of dimes plus 0.25 times the number of quarters, and that should equal then the $15.25. So now I have my two equations, and I should be able to go to my calculator and put that in. So let's switch over and see what we can do. Okay, so we go to menu 3.2, and we're going to change our variables to D and Q, so D, comma, Q. Then we can hit enter, and then we can type. So we have D plus Q equals 103, and then we have 0.10D plus 0.25Q equals 15.25. Enter. So if you'll notice right here, this tells me my D, my dimes, I have 70, and my Q, my quarters, I have 33. So if we go back to the worksheet, we can write that down. We had 70 dimes, and we had 33 quarters. Okay. Number 14 says, Ms. Jewell has 26 students in her 4th period class. She has 11 more boys than half the number of girls. Okay, so let's see if we can't write a couple of equations. We're talking about girls and boys, so I'm going to let G represent the number of girls, and then B represent the number of boys. Okay, so that means we have girls plus boys should equal the total number of students that she has, which is 26 right here. And then we have, it says she has 11 more boys than half the number of girls. So in this statement, we came to the word boys before we came to the word girls. So we're going to start with boys equals. 11 more means I'm going to be adding 11 to something. So I'm going to put plus 11 here. She has 11 more boys than half the number of girls. So I'm going to say 1/2 the number of girls. So again, I have my two equations. Let's see if we can flip over to our calculator. And all right, looking okay. All right, so let's see if I can do menu 3.2, and I'm changing my variables to G, comma B, and hit enter. Good, we can see. Okay, so my equations were G plus B equals 26. My second equation was B equals 1/2 G plus 11. So I end up with 10 and 16. So remember, if G was first, that means I have 10 girls and I have 16 boys. So let's go back to the paper and see what they were asking us to find. So it asked how many boys were in Ms. Jewell's class. Okay, so remember 10 was the girls, so 16 boys. So we have 16 boys in Ms. Jewell's 4th period class.